Hey everyone, J7Jace here, bringing you my recommended builds and tips for Chapter 3 of Final Fantasy Tactics. If you want a more specific build that just focuses on Ramza, I did make one a while back, so please check that out in the description and comments. Just like in Chapter 2, a lot of these loadouts won't require that much grinding and will be similar for the most part, from reaction and movement abilities with some minor tweaks. And I'll also be going over other pretty good builds near the end of the video. They just aren't my first choices by far though. The first thing I will be recommending is the Ninja with Brawler. Make sure you increase their Bravery to 97, use Ramza's Steel, aka Cheer Up, for best results. And I also recommend having high Bravery with all of your other characters as well, so the reaction ability will trigger a lot more frequently as it's a percentage based on your Bravery, besides parry and reflexes of course. This part is optional depending on your playstyle, but you always have the option to lower your fate stat within Lights In from the Order, which can be very useful versus enemy magic users to drastically decrease any incoming damage. However, if you're a fan of using magic on your party members, you may want to opt out of lowering faith. I also suggest ninjas here over monks because in 2 of these battles, you'll have to make sure a certain ally guest character doesn't get knocked out or it's game over. And ninjas are just faster and more mobile than monks, meaning they are better for these fights. And here are some builds. I do prefer stacking physical attack power with things like Headband and Power Garb, and if you have a lot of Gil, Bracer can increase your damage by quite a bit. But Speed Shoes or Germanist Boots is also a solid and a much cheaper option. And for your abilities, I actually like items best, but with X Potions and Phoenix Downs. Enemy damage can easily be over 70, so you want a stronger, reliable heal than High Potion. Then for your reaction ability, Auto Potion, but make sure you only have X Potions in your inventory. Another very good reaction ability is Mana Shield. Just make sure you have at least 1 MP and it'll damage your magic points instead of your HP. Then for your support ability, use Brawler, and for your movement abilities, Move +2, Move +3, or Teleport. This ninja build will be able to get you through all the battles in Chapter 3, especially if you're running multiple characters with this loadout. Now monks are still very good in my opinion, just not as good as ninjas because they have less move, they aren't as fast, and they can't equip anything in their helm slot unless you're a female with ribbon or something along those lines. But they're still a fine choice overall. The equipment and abilities will be very similar, however, getting dual wield from the ninja is probably better as there are some very strong bosses like Wiegraf and of course Belius. But I still prefer the ninja with Brawler more as it's a cheaper ability to learn, so therefore you can set up the ninja faster. And if you're on the War of the Lions version, Luso can be a solid character. He is essentially like Ramza, but better at this point in Chapter 3 because he has earlier access to Shout and he can equip Night Swords, if you can manage to poach an Elder Treant for one to get a defender, which can be very fast or slow depending on your RNG. A pretty good pick up and play build with him is to give him PA boosting equipment along with Japamala, as this will boost the elemental attack damage with his Ice Brand. Then give him items with X Potions and Phoenix Downs, Auto Potion, Attack Boost, and Move +2 or Move +3. This will take a little bit of time to grind for as he comes with not many abilities learned, but he can be worth your time, especially if you're a fan of FFTA 2. One huge advantage of Luso, although it's mainly for bragging rights, is that he can learn Ultima in the last battle with Elmdor and the Assassins. I have a video guide in the description, so check that out if you want to learn Ultima in the earliest possible way. Now, for our lovely Holy Knight, I bring to you 2 solid builds. The first one is to leave her as a Holy Knight, then equip her with Ice Brand, Japamala or Bracer, and then the best heavy armor you can buy at the shops. And for your abilities, items, Auto Potion, Attack Boost, and Move +2. However, a solid alternate setup, which I nearly forgot about, but thanks to Stormtrooper for the reminder, was to have her become a Geomancer, but to use Holy Sword as her secondary action ability, and then to equip her with Headband and Power Garb, which will grant her a substantial physical attack power increase, then use the same reaction support and movement abilities. Having her as a Geomancer will allow her to be more mobile and to have more damage, because her PA will be boosted, but one drawback is that she can't use items. It's still very solid and will be useful in battles though. And for those of you that love magic, the usual black mages. They just never go out of style, and I'm even going to add white mages here just based on their speed. Give these mages Iaido, Mana Shield or Auto Potion, Arcane Strength, and either Mana Font, Move +2, or Teleport. Now the Samurai abilities, Drawout or Iaido, they're fantastic because they're instant, and its damage and healing is based on our MA stat, which is why they're so strong on mages. So for damage, learn Heaven's Cloud, and for healing, use Murasame. I found this way more effective than white magic. And then Kiyomori when you can, as it grants Protect and Shell. You can always lower your Faith as well, since Iaido isn't based on her Faith stat, but it's totally up to you. If you want to use magic that's Faith-based, Swiftness is a fantastic option, as you can get off spells faster. Now, if you want to use Ramza, I personally recommend Ninja Brawler. It's the easiest to set up and can work very well in the fight versus Wiegraf and versus Elmdor and the assassins on the roof. But I do have another video, like I mentioned earlier, dedicated to Ramza specifically, so please watch that if you want some other options. The last build that I recommend that could do a lot of damage is a ninja or thief with jump and equip polearms. We want as much speed and PA as possible, so use Green Beret, Power Garb, and Speed Shoes. Then for your secondary, jump of course, preferably with horizontal and vertical jump 8 learned, Mana Shield for your reaction ability, but polearms for your support, and Mana Font for your movement ability. You will be nearly invincible here. Now for some other quick tips throughout this chapter. There are quite a few softlocks here. However, the major ones are save outside of Orbonne and Riovanes Castle. You never know. Just be safe and don't be too cocky.
There's cocky and there's confidence, right? And cockiness is always good.
So, have multiple save files. An exploit to work around Wiegraf's Holy Sword is to equip Chameleon Robe. You won't ever use things like Hollowed Bolt. But if a character stands next to another that doesn't have Chameleon Robe, the character will still get damaged, unfortunately. If the Dragoons and Isloots jump are giving you a hard time, you could always learn the reaction ability Shira Hadori, use Golem from the Summoner, or have Mana Shield on. These are some of the only ways you can nullify jump damage. I talked about him earlier, but absolutely recruit Luso in my opinion. You can no longer get him later into the game. But if you dislike him or didn't like FFTA2, you can always recruit him and take his equipment, because you normally can't get some of this stuff early on. If you're using a lot of job classes that can only equip heavy armor, don't forget to check out Lasalia before heading into Riovanes for new items, including things like Platinum Sword. Let's just say you have Auto Potion and X Potions, but you have weaker potions and high potions, and you can't access the shop to get rid of these items. Go into your view list and discard the weaker potions. This is the only time I ever recommend discarding things in this game, as our inventory is infinite and we can hold 99 of everything. For this part of the video, I'm going to be showing other builds which can work, although they aren't my first choices. For Mustadio, if you really want to use him, give him a Mithril Gun, or if you're on War of the Lions, you actually can entice and poach behemoths in the Luso fight. But this is only a one-time battle in Chapter 3, so make sure you bring an Order or someone with Entice to bring them into your party. When poaching Dark Behemoths, you have a chance to get Stoneshooter. Even though he'll start the battle stoned, he can do great damage, especially with attack boost. For the rest of his abilities, use items, then Mana Shield, attack boost of course, and Mana Font. He will be nearly invincible. Just make sure you have another party member to cure his Petrify status, Chemists with Remedy or Softs, or Monk's Purification can do the trick. Samurai can be a decent option too. Use Kiyomori for your weapon, equip the best heavy armor at the shop, and Bracer if you have the money. Then use items with Phoenix Downs, X Potions, and Remedy or Softs if using Mustadio with the Stoneshooter. And then Auto Potion, Cheetah Hadori or Mana Shield, and for your support, Doublehand, Dual Wield, Concentration, or Attack Boost. Then finally, Move +2 or Move +3. For Knights, get that Platinum Sword and the best armor from Lasalia before Riovanes. If you got the Gil, Bracer is the best accessory for them. This will not only increase our attack power, but also the chances of Arts of War landing. And for your abilities, items is never bad, then Auto Potion, Mana Shield, or Shida Hadori. And for your support, Attack Boost, Concentration, Double Hand, or Dual Wield. And for your movement ability, Move +2 or Move +3. Don't bother with archers unless you can somehow steal an Artemis bow from ones in random battles, or you could always entice them. But even then, I really can't recommend them, but use this build if you insist, and don't turn your whole party into archers. For these two jobs, I've given them some heat in the past, and I don't recommend a full party of them, but having one on standby could potentially change the battle. It's to deploy one Bard or to go with one Dancer. For the Bard, personally, Rousing Melody is probably the best choice, as getting more speed is great. But running Seraph's Song and having Mana Shield on all your other characters is a great way to make the party near invincible to all damaging attacks. For your equipment, you honestly don't need to buy Bloodstring Harp, just get the best HP boosting equipment like Gold Hairpin, Power Garb, and finally, Speed Shoes. For your abilities, items as usual. For your secondary, Mana Shield. For your support, Defense Boost. And lastly, Mana Font. This is a great unit that can restore MP to all your allies on the field. I also suggest lowering their face stat by a good amount, as it will help them withstand magic attacks. Now for our Dancer, it's going to be more or less the same build-wise. However, they harm enemies, so go for Slow Dance and pray it can land. Being able to reduce the speed of your enemy even once or twice can be the difference between a win or a loss. But Dancers can be strong if RNG is on your side. If you love using Geomancers, they can do well in Chapter 3 as well, since we have access to more PA and MA boosting gear. So for their weapon, get Platinum Sword, then Aegis Shield, Headband, Power Garb, and for our accessories, we do have some variety. Get Bracer, Mage Power Glove, or Japa Mala. They're all great with Geomancy damage. And I like Iaido or items for their secondary, then use Auto Potion or Mana Shield, Arcane Strength for support, and lastly, Move +2 or Mana Font. Before someone mentions it, the Arithmetician or Calculator can be viable. Well, their abilities, that is. Just don't ever use this as a primary, as their overall stats while being in this job are terrible, especially their speed. Learn their action abilities and use it as a secondary on other things with superior MA, like Black Mages, Summoners, Geomancers, and Time and White Mages. For a team setup, equip a Chameleon Robe on yourself and other party members. Use the right arithmetic skill, and use Holy. It can wipe the floor with nearly everything. If other party members can't equip a Chameleon Robe to absorb Holy, alternatively, you can always use Mana Shield to nullify the damage or have really low faith on these characters. The Holy's damage will be drastically weaker. Just make sure you have high faith and to use something that will boost Holy damage. Just make sure the person casting Holy has high faith so they can do insane damage. You can always use a Dragoon as well, however, I still think Jump is better used on jobs that have higher speed. But if you insist, just buy the best spears and heavy armor at the shop, and you'll be pretty good to go. Their extra range can be handy versus monsters that counter, and of course against Elmdor's First Strike. Similar to Knights, they hit pretty hard, but they're just a bit slow, so I don't like them in certain battles, but they're still viable. Last but not least, if you like hitting things with a very large stick, you can always use a double-hand pull build with the Mystic. This is a setup I like to use when messing around. Just remember to try and increase your MA, as pull damage is largely dependent on it, and that females are a better choice due to their better magic. I hope you all enjoyed my Chapter 3 builds and tips video. While this is probably the hardest chapter in the game for obvious reasons, just make sure you save outside of Orbonne, and more importantly, Riovanes Castle to be safe. And if you're having a hard time with any of these fights, just put your faith and trust into ninjas with Brawler. Check out the other videos on the screen or the description if you want more details on how to defeat Wiegraf specifically, on how to build Ramza, and how to learn Ultima early with Luso. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing. Take care, and all the best to you.